Good evening, good people. Thank you so much for joining us for our second masterclass series in the School of AI for AI Prompt Engineering. Just as a side note, it is the 26th of March at 6 o'clock. Welcome again. So all of you might, and some of you rather, might have been privy to our previous masterclass where we had explored AI literacy, where we had explored digital fluency. Today's masterclass is quite an exciting one. It speaks to AI prompt engineering. And AI prompt engineering is really the tool and the skill that is needed for us to leverage AI effectively. This masterclass will be a masterclass which focuses on cultivating that particular skill. This is, however, a bit of a preview into a much more extensive class and course hosted by Regenesis, the School of AI. I'm hoping that this does whet your appetite because we have an extremely extensive prompt engineering course. And insofar as the detail is concerned, today we are dipping our conscious into some of the detail. As and if this does whet your appetite, let's engage a little bit further. But for now, I'd like to signal the start of our masterclass. For the sake of the dialogue, my name is Dr. Nishal Kushal, the managing partner of AI Africa for Regenesis Education. Thank you, my good people, ladies, gentlemen, and all AI personas currently within the audience. So let's move on. As is our custom, as is our pronouncement as a business school which has the ethos of awakening potential, I would like to draw your attention firstly to what we believe in. On the basis of Regenesis and on our belief of awakening potential, on the screen you see on the left the foundation of our entire principles, of our amalgamated intention for the sake of everyone, all of our academics, all of our teachers, in the pursuit of creating conscious leaders. And conscious leaders being you, of course, my ladies and gentlemen. Our purpose as educators within Regenesis is to ensure that we do the best we can in order to capacitate you for an amazing future, but more so in a future that you can make a difference, more so in a future that you are spearheading what is absolute conscious leadership. And that translates to the School of AI. What's interesting is that artificial intelligence is literally the coupling of human and digital potential. And that's a fair representation because we have human intelligence, now we have artificial intelligence, and together we have universal intelligence. So on that note, and on that sobering ethical principle pronouncement, I would like to move on to just a small segue. My name is Dr. Nishal Kushal. With respect to having a position of AI authority, sit on various boards, I am really, really excited to be hosting this particular masterclass. But that which is of more excitement is what we will be seeing coming up in the next few days. The Regenesis School of AI Summit. And as an AI summit, this particular event is going to be quite a spectacular one. It is going to be attended by a lot of leaders within the industry of technology and AI. You will have an opportunity, if you are part of the summit, to caucus, to discuss, to discourse, to absorb a lot of relevant information. The leaders will be coming from the Fortune 500 technological landscape. We have the CEOs of mega corporations. We have the chief data officers of mega corporations. We have sectors of banking and finance. We have sectors of medical science, and we have the sectors of all exploration with respect to technology, infrastructure, as well as data. So don't miss out on this one. There is a website that you will see on your screen, aisummit.regenesis.net. Go ahead and explore. Looking forward to inviting you and seeing you at the summit. Hopefully, you can definitely get some crown jewels out of the discourse, out of the intellectual capital that will galvanize you into even being more vocal, more confident, and more prepared for the AI future we are chartering. Right. So, good audience members, let's jump into prompt engineering. I'm just going to give you a prompt explanation with respect to prompt engineering on this. But before I do, it is customary, furthermore, that at the beginning of each of our courses, each of our master classes, we give you, the audience, an opportunity to get some of those mental juices stimulated. So on the screen right now, you will see a series of instructions. You will see a 3D barcode, and on the left-hand side, you will see a website as well as a code. I would invite you to please go ahead, scan the barcode in, go to the website that is currently showed. And insofar as what you see on the screen goes, it will be a series of instructions that will finally lead to a question. I would like you to right now visit the QR code or visit the website with that code inputted. And I'd like you to follow the prompts, no pun intended, and follow the instructions that you see on your screen within your phone. I will allow you a few minutes to do so. And I would invite that everyone who has an opportunity definitely considers what that question is. Okay, my good people. So on the screen right now is the representation of what input some of you have submitted is. You will see that some of these specific words are larger than others. The reason for why those words are larger is that those words have been inputted by more than one individual. This is basically something called a thought cloud. It represents the collective consciousness of people around the table as it relates to the question. All right. So for the sake of ensuring that this background continues, I will leave the faculty, the facility of the answering enabled, but I'm going to go into a direct dialogue right now regarding our representations that we see within the screen. What we see currently is that we were asked for a word or short phrase that comes to our mind when we consider prompt engineering. I love the fact that we understand it to a certain extent. Some of you good people have submitted your thoughts to say that prompt engineering talks to direction. Prompt engineering talks to being more detailed. Well articulated, well articulated. Bravo. Those are actually the purpose and the mission statement of why we do prompt engineering, to ensure that essentially what we receive, what the output is of AI is in line to what we expect. And of course, AI is not psychic. AI is not able to read your mind. So it behooves us to understand what the input is going to be for us to get an output. Now, prompt engineering speaks to the input so that you get a sufficient and detailed and desirable output. Now that we've finished with what prompt engineering is about, I think that concludes the actual presentation. No, I'm joking, my good ladies and gentlemen. I'm hoping that we certainly will be able to get into much more than just a small smidgen of detail. So let's move on. Let's talk about where AI is used in this current day and age. And I want us to think about this in context of prompt engineering and in context of how multidimensional prompt engineering would be. As early as the 2020s, when we had AI readily accessible and readily receivable by business and by individuals, we had two breaks in the form and shape of AI. We had AI and machine learning applications, and we had multiple sectors within business where AI cascaded into, that is generative AI. So, good people, consider that when we are thinking about AI, we are talking about an engine that does calculations based on computations, based on what it receives from an instructional point of view. Now, AI and machine learning separates the instructions and just keeps the computational part of it. Generative AI adds in an opportunity for you to query the AI engine. So what's the difference between artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence? AI speaks to the computation calculations, which is being done within a computer. Generative AI speaks to the interface which enables you to communicate with the computational algorithms and calculations. So that's the difference here. In the 2020s, we had two sectors, AI, ML, and the polysectorial cascade. What does that mean? So we had healthcare, we had finance, we had retail, we had even transportation, which is leveraging and is currently in a process of even perfecting in certain instances the use of artificial intelligence. On the AI and machine learning side, we had supervised learnings, generative adversarial networks, and transformers architectures. Transformer architectures speaks to LLMs. Let me not go too much into this and let's refocus back into prompt engineering, because that most certainly, with respect to understanding architectures and LLM, is its own course. So I just want to highlight that people consider AI. Where is AI used? And currently, can you think of a field that doesn't use AI in a formal manner? It's a very, very interesting question. Think about it very carefully, right? Which field currently do we know that AI is not being used in? Mathematics? No, that's a bit silly, isn't it? Because AI can be used quite extensively within the mathematical field. How about agriculture? Now, agriculture, we'd be sitting with the fact that soil sample analysis, as well as water quality analysis, as well as IoT monitoring is AI enabled in various landscapes. What about your traditional fields like plumbing? That's interesting, isn't it? How would we use AI in plumbing? I guess that's a bit of a redundant question. Plumbing speaks to optimization of water usage. Plumbing speaks to architecture as well of the water network, the disposal water network, wastewater and otherwise. And for you to plot plumbing, what would be a good tool to plot? Most certainly artificial intelligence. So again, it's quite interesting because we're not sitting in a landscape where AI cannot be used in. Oh, Bernhard, thank you for that question. AI can't be used in mathematics. Actually, what we are saying is that mathematics, when we're looking at pure mathematics, there was an interesting sentimentality that spoke to the fact that when we say AI and when we say mathematics, those are two separate connotations. It's true that mathematics, in the purest sense, can stand on its own, but it's a fallacy and it's false to say that AI cannot be used in mathematics. So I'm on the same page as you, my good man. So far as I'm concerned, AI is a universal application, which is quite interesting because it is one of the singular tools in human history that has such universal applications. So now that we understand that, let's go back to prompt engineering. My people, think about this carefully. Prompt engineering is not a one shot is perfect and hits all applications. What we explore here is foundational knowledge. It is obviously commensurate and connected to the domain and the industry you work with and within that will change the nature of the prompt based on the foundation that we talk about today. So, in other words, healthcare. Healthcare has certain statutes and risk guidances that is different from, for example, transportation. Transportation will have other considerations, which have other applications over and above retail and finance. So, as much as we discuss prompt engineering foundational today, take it and know that there is going to be very, very human based creative ways where you need to adapt your domain to this prompt engineering foundation that we discuss. And I love the fact, Benhard, that when you say, I believe we will get there with adaptations to mathematical nature, that's actually pretty brilliant. There are various mathematical formulas currently that we talk from from an RNG point of view, from Benford's law point of view, from Levenstein's rule point of view, where AI has leveraged these mathematical laws in order to create more efficiencies for us to do triangulations, extrapolations, and the like. There is the universal constants. There is gravity calculations. Science is most certainly connected to STEM and particularly mathematics within the STEM environment. So I cannot agree with you more. We will most certainly get there. AI is definitely a tool to use within the mathematical landscape. And I think as time goes on, it's only going to be used more and more as we refine it. As a real world example and as a case study, I mentioned Benford's law. I will invite each of you to consider what Benford's law is. But it's basically, and in a very crude form, it shows the occurrence of numbers within a list of data transactions. The more the data transactions appear in the sense of general populace, the more the occurrence of numbers occurs according to a curve that is defined by Benford's law. What does that mean? Look at a bank. Bank has billions of transactions. Within those billions of transactions are various numbers. Within those various numbers, it's really funny. But if you consider the number 9, you will see that the number 9 occurs quite a lot as compared to other numbers, like, for example, 4. And Benford's law speaks to that propensity of regularity or irregularity. So we use Benford's law in order to create AI tooling to determine if there's any deviations from Benford's law, which could indicate anomalous transactions. In a nutshell, AI and mathematics, AI and banking, AI and healthcare, AI and everything at this point in time, my dear audience, polysectorial cascades. Let's move on. AI, redefining, reshaping, altering, accelerating, creating. Those are powerful, powerful words. And to consider a tool has the ability to do all of that behooves us, almost forces us as people, professionals, and as experts to take it seriously. And the only way we take things seriously is to educate ourselves, which is why I'm really, really impressed with all of you around the table, getting here, sacrificing some time, understanding and educating yourself on the concept of how best to use a tool, in this case, AI. So let's talk about what we are trying to achieve today. MC is masterclass. So yesterday's masterclass was talking about understanding AI, literacy, fluency, the difference between AI fluency or AI literacy or digital fluency or digital literacy. I'm hoping that we took away some understanding from there, as well as the expanse of how prolific artificial intelligence is. This masterclass, Masterclass 2, will be talking about how to work with AI as opposed to understanding AI. So a bridge from literacy into the practical. I think that's well. Bernard, I'm so impressed and I'm so heart-warmed by your enthusiasm. I'm hoping that this session will most certainly be good for you. I'm hoping that this whets your appetite for the actual prompt engineering course that we also have. But I'm going to do my best to show you what it is that we can use as a foundation so that you can take this and apply it in your everyday. And remember, your everyday means you as an individual. Your everyday means you as a professional. Your everyday means collectively you and your colleagues guiding a common goal, project, or otherwise assignment. So there's various considerations. The skill, prompt engineering, is a universal skill. It speaks to optimizing the generative AI interface, the human-machine connection. Okay. Session shows professional how to move from casual prompting to structured prompting. I think that's quite important because I have no doubt that many of you, in some way, shape, or form, have experienced that after you prompt an AI engine, sometimes you need to go back. There's things missing. You need to refine. You need to add. You need to take away. You need to constrain. You need to express better. You need to expand, contract. AI is not a mind reader. The only way AI will get you what you want is if you tell it what you need. So, again, creating a dependable partner rather than an unpredictable tool. I cannot agree with that more. This class matters because of the human-machine interaction. I'm not even going to go into that, my good people, but the human-machine interaction is a very, very interesting space. Consider that, and I'm not going to go too far into this, but I want to plant the seed. Prompt engineering is one mechanism of us interacting and knowing how to interface, how to get the output we expect with a good input. But it is either articulation verbally or it is articulation tactically in the sense of typing in. AI right now has the ability called multimodal ingestion. Multimodal AI with multimodal ingestion means that AI right now certainly can hear, can also see, can tactilely feel, can even simulate sensation. So before we go too deep down the rabbit hole of multimodal AI, prompt engineering masters the element of how you interface with AI in one modality. There are multiple modalities coming up, and slowly we will develop more and more tools and more optimized interface abilities based on those modes of interaction. Quite an exciting journey. And I'm hoping all of you will come on this journey with me. There'll be a lot of bumps on the road, but that's what makes the journey worthwhile. Prompting is practical workspace skills, better output, better judgment, better productivity with better input. Directing is where professional value begins. I'm doing this very deliberately, my good people. I'm doing this so deliberately because I cannot articulate well and hard enough as to how important this skill is. It is literally the enabler to give you the most out of the AI engines, out of the LLMs. Prompt engineering, or rather for that matter, the ability to query and enhance the human-machine interaction, prompt engineering being one of it, is the most important skill to leverage AI. So why does prompt engineering matter? Well, consider that we've articulated that in order for us to get a desired output, we need to know what's an effective input. The only way we know what's an effective input is if we understand the precepts and the concepts of prompt engineering. So right now we casually query AI, we do a little bit of prompting, we do a little bit of query language. However, AI doesn't know everything. Again, I'm saying it does not read your mind. It will only work with the limited query input that you have provided it. The more limited your input, the more you can expect a limited output or a non-contextual output. There's a very important concept called context. Context is explored in an nth degree in the course, and we'll touch on it in this masterclass as well. But again, context basically means enhancing the input, ensuring all elements and variables of the input are there in order to give you the output that you desire. So let's move on from here and consider how does AI work? That's quite a question. LLMs. Now, for those of you who have not joined us in the last masterclass, what are you guys doing? No, on a serious note, we covered what it is and the steps that are done in order to allow us to have a model. A model is an LLM. When you have a lot of data, data is the catalyst and the lifeblood of AI. Why? Because data is used to train something called a model. A trained model is called an LLM. But what does this training mean? What do we mean by data is used to train a model and the model is a LLM? So when we talk about data, we talk about a lot of information. The more information that we input into a model, the more it tends towards understanding its various levels and its various options of output. So if you train a model on mathematical concepts, it will master an output of mathematics. If you train a model on articulation in English language, it will be able to respond to you in a way that detects the patterns in language and articulates, vocalizes, conveys that particular pattern. So the pattern in language is if I have to ask a question, the next pattern is a response and an answer. So large language models responds to patterns in language because it is a model that has been trained on language articulation. But pattern recognition. AI does not think like humans. That's very strange. But allow me to expand your consciousness, my good people of the audience. We as humans, we have something which is called the human condition. In the human condition, we have certain tics, we have certain observations, and we have certain digestions that come from a human to human interaction. In fact, some of it is so well defined by many of us that we even ascribe to say we have a sixth sense of knowing things. But let's get back to the logic of it. Let's get back to the science of it. Human to human interaction is based on a few things: human body language, human tonality, high tone, low tone, emphasis, de-emphasis, things like that. It speaks to an element of us having something which is definitely defined as consciousness. And when it comes down to consciousness, consciousness is distinctly different to pattern recognition. It's true that pattern recognition is part of consciousness, but consciousness is not only pattern recognition. Now keep that in mind, because AI right now, understandably so, has the ability to understand patterns, provide output from patterns, understand language patterns, provide output in language patterns, mathematical patterns, and the like. Does it have consciousness? And that's what we mean by they do not think like humans. Generative AI models do not think like humans. That's why I think we are quite far from the Terminator sensationalism. So Arnold Schwarzenegger will certainly not get another sequel in real time once AI is actually done, at least not for the immediate future. Let's move on. They, being the model, relies on clarity, context, and structure. And keep in mind, people, I think you'll be able to suss out here that these slides I actually do myself. I don't even use a LLM model, because if I was using an LLM model or a AI, I doubt the AI would want to refer to themselves as they. Be that as it may, coming back to the matter at hand, clarity, context, and structure is what prompt engineering is about. Giving it clarity, context, and structure. Again, ambiguity weakens the quality. Specificity improves the relevance. Oh, there we are. The model is not reading your mind. It's reading your structure. Let's move on. So let's talk about deconstructing what the logic of a good prompt is. On the screen is a series of sentimentalities. Quite a lot. Quite a lot. I would like to ask each of you to walk with me on this journey, because we're going to go from a lot of information into a condensed amount into an optimal state. But you need to understand the context behind this massive amount of what prompt engineering is about. So first and foremost, consider that when you have a problem statement, these are the questions you ask about the problem statement, even before we go into AI, even before we think about LLMs. The question is, when you have a problem statement, how would you explore it? You first want to know what your objective is insofar as the solution to the problem statement is. Of course, you would. You would want to know that when it comes down to you acting as an expert, what is your role in that problem statement? Are you positioned as, for example, a legal expert within the problem statement, articulating legislature? Are you positioned as a governance expert, articulating compliance? Are you positioned as a computer and technology expert, articulating infrastructure and data? So it's important to know who you are and what you represent. What are you going to be doing in order to solve the problem? So your tasks. Because you have a problem statement, you need to know what tasks will lead to a solution. Based on, in order for you to get to the solution, you understand what inputs you need to reach the solution. What is the context of that information? Very important. Who is the solution for? Within what scope is the solution viable? What constraints do you have to work with? And we all, which are in business, know that business works with scope and constraints. It's not that you have carte blanche normally. There's very few industries which allow you carte blanche. You normally have a constraint of legislature. You have a constraint of jurisdiction. You have a constraint of area. You have a constraint of, for that matter, district. You have a constraint of people. You have a constraint of industry. So consider what the constraints would be, in what style. Now, the stylistic part of it is more around how would you position and articulate it? Would you like it in the style of an aggressive and a bit of a more assertive legal expert? Would you like it as a coach? Would you like it conveyed as an expert within medical science, within a domain? Would you like it to be conveyed as a grassroots learner, which is trying to explain the landscape of its problem? So that's very important. In what style do you deploy the articulated solution? Using what logic? Now this is important because we spoke about input. Input being what is the actual context as well. But when it comes down to using what logic, reasoning in the sense of what do you do with that input? also pretty important. Now, output format, also quite important, because insofar as in what form you want it, you can put it into a executive dialogue, you can put it into an operational plan, you can put it into a presentation, you can put it into a paragraph, you can put it into a thesis. So it's important to understand what our output is. How is it judged? Now, the judge and how it is improved, that's very AI specific. So let me and allow me to move on. But for the sake of this dialogue, I wanted us to explore each element. This is not new to you, my good people. As experts around the table, this is merely a reframing of your knowledge base, but it's important reframing. So again, I ask you, walk with me here. So let's expand the logic that we have been provided. From this to this. I'm going to give you a moment and I'm going to basically articulate and convey that what you see on the screen right now, quite a lot of information. I understand, good people. What is important to consider is that this 3x5 15 block elemental breakdown of what an expanded logical prompt should have is actually dependent on what you need. This is a more complete and comprehensive architecture of a prompt. It gives us an nth level degree of what a prompt should have. Objective role tasks, we already mentioned. Context, we already mentioned. The audience is the scope, constraints, input sources, references, or stylistic cues, assumptions, reasoning logic, output format, quality bar, evaluate and iterate. Now, some of these things, like for instance, when we talk about output format, reasoning logic, and assumptions, we cascaded assumptions and reasoning logics into. If I go back, using what logic? Through reasoning. So all of these blocks that is provided on the screen currently is actually what we would consider the full and the comprehensive view of what a prompt should have. Again, what we have on the screen is a full and overly comprehensive view of what a prompt should have. Now, you would see at the bottom that I always have these small ribbons of thought provocations. As a give you contexts to what I am providing. So let's talk about the thought provocation. When we talk about thought provocation, we are also considering that all of these inputs are not necessarily required. Again, all of these inputs are not necessarily required. However, the more specific you are, the better your output. I'm going to say it again. Not all of these are required, but what we have provided and what we are seeing here is a comprehensive view of what you should articulate to get a complete answer. Let's go into the practical view of how to translate this into a prompt. I have now flowed. And remember, I said, my good people, we're going to look at a lot and we're going to dilute it down. I have flowed all of our 15 blocks into these 5 areas. With respect to these 5 areas, it's about framing, directing, grounding, usage, and improving. Let me go to the next slide in order to explain what do we mean by these concepts of framing, directing, grounding, usage, and improving. Let's talk about framing. When we frame the outcome, we talk about what do we want and for what is it for? Who are we and what skills do we have? For whom is this, and in what form is it? Let's talk about that. So, frame the outcome had 5 elemental areas: objective, role, task, context, and audience. In each of these, you have an opportunity to fill out what you would like your prompt to be within each individual area. So, objective, create a professional executive summary. Role, act as a senior strategy advisor. Can you see what's happening here, people? We are building a persona as well. Task, write a clear, persuasive, and structured executive summary. So you see what you're doing. You're saying create an executive summary for an audience or for a board level, your objective, overall objective. As a senior strategic advisor, create a persuasive and structured summary. And in context, the company is mid to large enterprise in South Africa interested in AI, and the audience would be your board members, etc., etc. So you are crowning your objective with all of these individual variables. Let's move on from framing. And remember, good people, I'm going to go back. Frame to direct, to ground, to the use, to the final view of improving. Let's go to direct. So, when we direct the work, what we want to achieve is establishing what does it cover and how it is delivered. Where do you get the info from to inform your opinion, and how do you articulate it? What does that mean? Scope, constraints, inputs, and reference and stuff. Scope covers strategic rationale. Remember, we only spoke about an exec summary at the beginning. We spoke about the context of who the person is. Now we are saying this is your scope: strategic rationale, business value, consideration, governance, etc., etc. Constraints is an interesting one because the constraints allow you to either constrain or expand based on what you are expecting. Remember, AI has limitations, my good people. If you ask for an over-expansive answer, circa, I would say, above 60 individual queries or gigantic books in your output, what is going to happen is that the AI cache is not going to accommodate all of the information, and there's a greater chance of you leading to hallucinations given the preceding information being dropped, because AI has to buffer information in order to articulate. The more and more it buffers, the more and more it expands, the more and more it tries to answer you with more complicated views. The larger the cache gets, the more chance of hallucination, the more chance that it will be a problem. So when you constrain the answer, you also protect yourself from potential issues around hallucinations and the like. What if your constraint is that you expect a book? Well, I would suggest splitting it up, maybe into chapters or even sections. Your input sources, very, very important. General best practices, knowledge, AI adoption, transformation, governance, all of that is just an example of our original query that we expected. Remember what we wanted in an objective? Our objective is to create a professional executive summary for a board level audience on why a company should adopt AI enablement strategy over the next 12 months. That's your crowning objective. Crowning objective informs all of the elements, but it is also one of the variables that you start with. But let's move on. We were talking about directing the work, and we are landing on input sources and reference and style. This is important because if you want to articulate it as a kindergartner or you want to articulate it as a CEO, you must specify it. Let's move on to the third, grounding the answer. So grounding speaks to constraints, limitations, but not constraints in the sense of the sourcing of constraints. It talks to the assumptions that you can make and can't make. So assumptions, assuming the model of the company has a reasonable digital base, digress down the progression and maturity curve, but no mature AI model. So reasonable digital, but not a mature AI model. So that's an interesting assumption, because if you say assume that the company has a very mature AI operating model. The answer will be dramatically different. It's important for you to inform the model about your assumptions. So let's talk about reasoning. Reasoning speaks to how you need to frame what the logic will be. Are you more cautious? Are you more assertive? Are you more brash? Are you bullish or bearish? So here we are balancing opportunity with caution. Upside, but responsible governance. Always very important. Regenesis speaks a lot to conscious ethical leadership. That's why you will see quite a lot of the sentimentality in what we articulate and what we train on. What you see here is the output form, shape, and form. A title, a paragraph, 5 strategic reasons, 5 key risks, 3-phase roadmap, and a concluding recommendation. Can you see how prescriptive we are being? We had a crowning expectation. We had how the AI had to, it needed to personify. We had to give it constraints. We gave it a scope. We talked about the company. We gave it the reasoning it needed to follow around being bullish or bearish. And then we asked for an output. That's a lot. But it guides the AI in prompt engineering. Penultimate, usage. What risks to consider and how do you check that you've scored the goal? Important, because what if the AI is missing what you expect? So quality, make a statement. Ensure the output is practical insofar as pragmatism is concerned. And in this case, we spoke of pragmatism in reality and structured and suitable for direct inclusion in a board plan. If you talk to the effect of make it operational and have the ability to be directly included into a project plan, that's a dramatic difference. If you say, make it more of an instructional manual and articulate it in a way that a coach would do it, that's a different output. If you say, make it a basic understanding for operational staff to follow on a standard operating procedure manual, will be a different output. So when you are ensuring the quality of the output, have this as a gate that when the output is generated above, the quality check and the usage is articulated well enough so that it goes to the correct audience, even though you define the audience, and the correct level of the audience. Let's talk about evaluate, check the summary is relevant. And I think this is more crowning, again, what your primary objective was. Now, let me just say this. This step 5 on the test and improve is not a complete requirement all of the time for prompt engineering. Normally, what you have is a situation that you have one version generated. This will only be important if you want iterative versions, where over and above, you would like the model to run 10 times, and in each of the 10 times, improve on its prior. And trust me, my good people, it's possible for you to do that. In more advanced prompt engineering opportunities, and in our prompt engineering course, remember people, this is a masterclass, it is not a course. In our prompt engineering course, we actually query the AI engine, and we go through exactly what the difference is in its provision of every single iteration as it flows and how it improves. It's quite intriguing. So let's bring it all together promptly. On the screen, you will see how to construct your query. Make sure that you have all of it. And you'd notice that each of the colors that I have provided here represent a pillar, one of the 5 pillars that we had spoken about. The first pillar being obviously ensuring that, allow me to show you, ensuring that you frame, direct, ground, use, and for want of a better word, improve, iterate, increase quality. Let me move on. So again, bringing it all together, this is what we have. From the point of view of to lock it in, your prompt should have these variables within it. Objective role, task, context, audience, scope, constraint, style, and source, assumptions, reasoning, quality and evaluations. So let's make that practical. Ladies and gentlemen, on the screen is the sum total of our prompt engineering exploration. You would see that it is color-coded. It is color-coded in order to give you a context, to give you a perspective in the sense of how you can bring it all together. What we have done is that we went granularly in order to construct and appreciate how detailed prompt engineering can be. But with those 5 pillars we provided, it's possible for you to compress and cascade and just speak to those 5 pillars. Now you'll see the yellow is objective, role, task, context, and audience. You will see the green is scope, constraint, source, and style. You will see that the blue is the assumptions, reasoning, and outputs. And finally, you have your purple. Again, my good people, what you see on the screen is an example of the sum total of the cascade of the pillars that we have discussed. Going back to what we said, these are the 5 pillars. And here it is in another view, your final prompt engineered. Pillar 1, pillar 2, 3, 4, and 5. Excellent, my good people. And just for the sake of reference, and I always want to do this, here is our pillar 1, framing, our pillar 2, direct, ground, use, improve. Improve is relative. First 4 pillars is very important. Frame, direct, ground, and use. So again, frame, direct, ground, and use. 1 is frame, 2 is direct, 3 is ground, 4 is how would you use. The first one is a combination of individual variables. So is the second, third, and fourth pillars. 5th pillar stands on its own, but in reality, the 5th pillar is circumstantial, depending on whether you want an incrementally improved answer. Going back to our final prompt, here is our final prompt. And again, that final prompt speaks this prompt engineered framework. What you see on the table, my good people, is a framework. I would like us to conclude this exploration with a very important sentiment. Responsible AI and some reasoning why we need to ensure that we use best practices in prompt engineering. Why don't we allow ourselves to run away with crazy prompt engineering? What you see on the screen is a representation of what happens within the AI environment. Environmental impact of AI usage. Can you see that currently data centers using the AI algorithms consume 2 to 3% of global electricity, billions of liters of water for cooling? Now, it's true that your small prompt is not consuming billions of liters of water, but everything does matter. As conscious leaders, we cannot forego the fact that there's a greater effect, the lesser contributions that we are responsible for. When you construct your queries, don't construct them in ridiculous ways that allow for over-expansive articulation of output. Be specific, be grounded, be direct. Ensure that what you ask for is summarized in the form that you need. Every time you query an AI engine, every time you don't follow those best practices, you have to re-engage the AIs, the power usage, the water usage. And I think it behooves me as a leader within the Regenesis space to highlight this, because again, you represent the future of conscious leaders. It is my responsibility to give you the tools and the understanding to reach a level of being a conscious leader. So keep in mind, prudence in usage, responsible AI querying and prompt engineering contributes to a positive benefication and the greater good. Everything counts, my good people. Also, keep in mind that the more specific you are, the better AI would be in producing less hallucinations. More expansive and loose you are in your prompts, the more the chance for hallucinations because you're not being specific. I'm not going to go into inherent biases, etc., but this particular slide, please digest it. It speaks to responsible use of AI, and it also speaks into why we do prompt engineering. Why does it matter? Not because it makes your work easier and it gives you that amazing output that you want to copy and paste into an email and look like you've done your work perfectly. It's not only about that. It's about the fact that everything you do has an impact. We need to be conscious about our impact. Let's move on, my good people. So, we have reached a segue in the sense of the end. And I would like to draw your attention to the fact that from this point, I don't want it to be seen as the ultimate end. I would like this to be an actual beginning spark, which causes a massive surge within the need to know more, learning and otherwise. And you would see that in our prompt engineering course, we really go into detail here. This was merely a teaser, to be quite clear, but I do believe that there was a lot of intellectual capital here that you can practically use within your everyday as people, as business individuals, and as collective people as well around the table in a group. So let's move on. What you see on the screen is a few of our technical courses that we will offer. I need to put it on the table that this is not the sum total of the articulated knowledge that we share with our potential students. This is merely a small glimpse, a small top of the glacier that you will have at your disposal if you decide to come across and explore this topic with us. The School of AI is one such school. The second school is the School of Corporate Education. Brilliant school. I would invite you to go ahead and look at both of our websites. We have a lot of AI content for leaders, for managers, and for the technical experts as represented within the context of this slide. For the leaders and management series in AI, go ahead and consult our School of Corporate Education website. I draw your attention again to the fact that there is the AI Summit coming up in the next few days. I hope that this was a taste of things to come in the sense of the future that Regenesis has planned for its opening of the School of AI, and also to invite you as a potential expert contributing to the future of AI within South Africa, within Africa, and within the planet. So, good people, I want to thank you for your time. I want to appreciate you for your attention. And I want to say that it's been quite a wonderful journey. You guys are amazingly interactive. I thank you for that. Let's move into a Q&A segment. I would like to right now invite you to position any questions that you might have within the context of the chat, and we will move forward on the basis of articulating our answers and exploring them together as a collective community of AI experts. Please go ahead. I see an excellent question coming through. Tinashe, thank you for that question. Allow me to articulate the question and answer it. There is a conversation conversation that software engineers, among many other professionals, are to be replaced by prompt engineers. All right. What do you consider to be the edge that human beings have over AI? What will make people more relevant within the 21st century? This is a brilliant question, and it's a great question. It has many layers. So let's tackle the three questions within this question. Firstly, a conversation that software engineers are going to be replaced by prompt engineers. By prompt engineers, I would consider, my dear Kineshi, that you are talking about vibe coders. So, vibe coders are coders that are, let's say, for want of a better word or words, individuals that create programs, applications through AI prompts, where they instruct the AI to code things for them. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it at all. I am an actual coder. My past deals with back-end development, front-end development, UI, UX, and the like. And as part of that particular past, I have a vested interest in hoping that there is some relevance with my fellow coders. But allow me to explore this properly with you. Vibe coding is a discipline that is prone to the same problems that normal generative AI is prone to. What do I mean? What I mean is that when you query an AI engine for coding that allows you to engineer software, circa being a software engineer, you expose yourself to a few problems. First problem, if you have the audacity as a coder to copy and paste coding without understanding it, and you have the responsibility later on of supporting it, and you don't know that what AI does when you ask it to support the code it creates can be extremely, extremely dangerous, then you have a problem. Walk with me here. There has been, and I would invite you to look on the news. There has been a particular company, for the sake of sanctity and integrity, we won't go around naming companies. But in the news, there has been a company which has replaced 60 to 70% of its AI coding. And what happened on the basis of a platform that it created was that downtime increased, because whenever there was a problem that the vibe coders asked AI to repair and to consider, a few things were happening. The first thing that happened is that it rewrote the entire coding base. It didn't understand humanized segmented logic. It didn't understand new age containerization. It didn't understand that in order for you to be able to code on the basis of the cutting edge coding, your research, your understanding of a contextual experience of risk, of collapses of systems, of understanding what is systems best practices, of splitting and understanding the environmental conditions of coding, that wasn't in place. Let me explain that better. South Africa, we have a problem with infrastructure. Do we have the equivalent of a first world environment where we have an entire landscape that data centers are supporting us immediately within a few seconds? That insofar as how we use and consume electricity within the landscape, that we don't have load shedding. Let's assume that our environment is not cascading into geopolitical problems where you have jurisdictional areas which have a concern, let's just say a concern around municipal flow of water, around municipal services and the like. So, as I know all of that. Sure, you can inform it, but without the experiences to inform the human condition, which then informs a logical base. For example, software engineers which are aware of load shedding, software engineers which are aware of the constraints of the human condition on the infrastructural conditions of a developing nation. This is very important. In order for software engineers to remain relevant, it would behoove software engineers to be more and more mindful of their environment. To be a perfect coder without the creativity of understanding a discipline to the nth degree will be a problem. You have an issue that AI is able to do coding. It will be an argument to say AI can code better. It won't be an argument to say that AI understands the variables of the human conditions that we have to live and survive in order to be constructed in a way that speaks to the reality that we find ourselves in. So, to answer your question, what do I consider the edge of human understanding of the emotional spectrum? Our very understanding of the human condition places us at an edge. So the relevance in the 21st century that we would have is that we need to be more human. Funnily enough, good people, we are using AI and the advice is be more human. I think the advice also in Spectrum is do not lose the importance of humanity in your pursuit of perfected AI. That is the message. Let's move on to the next statement. Insofar as thank you for the question, Safura. In essence, your question has to do with the educational offerings of Regenesis, the costs, and whether there is some reconsideration. There's an element of inclusivity, which I certainly support. As the head of the school, as much as I support it, I would consider that you reach out to me directly within LinkedIn and other forums so that I can connect you with the correct people which are in jurisdiction and which have the responsibility of the actual educational offering, deployments, cost, and otherwise. Most certainly will support you in directing you to the correct people. So you are supported there. Thank you for that. My statement also, and Safura, thank you for the second statement. It appears from your lectures of yesterday and today that AI has the potential to create new job opportunities if it's integrated into theoretical and technical elements and modules of education. That's an amazing statement, and I cannot agree with you more. We are of two minds when it comes to that as a collective consciousness within all of our schools. We understand that when we use AI, we have to use it responsibly, we have to use it ethically, we have to use it effectively. And insofar as our usage of AI is concerned, if the intention is to create job opportunities by consciously deciding that this is how we would architect the future without creating redundancies, most certainly AI supports the human condition. If the intention is an irresponsible use of AI to eliminate the humanized part of it, then it wouldn't be the best use of our logic. And really, as leaders within the schools of Regenesis, it would not be where we find ourselves insofar as our preference goes. Yes, you are right, Safura. In my lectures between yesterday and today, I'm quite optimistic that AI will create jobs for the future. That they will repurpose existing jobs. There will be new segmentation of jobs created. So I agree with you. Benhard, how do you reach me directly for more queries? And I like the fact that you are saying that on behalf of our entire audience. My suggestion would be reach out to me on the basis of two mediums. The first medium, our website, which will be up. The second medium, LinkedIn, both on the Regenesis LinkedIn as well as my personal LinkedIn. I would love that my potential people around the table who are AI aspirants connect with me. We can explore a lot of things together, and I'm keen to engage with you. All right, my good people. Tinashe, I see we have another question which just came through in time. Allow me to branch further from the question you just answered. Will AI create more jobs than it will take away from human beings? Okay, so let me answer directly and say it all depends on who's in charge of the AI. AI used irresponsibly will take away human jobs. And let me say it's an irresponsible assumption that AI can replace humans. It is an irresponsible assumption that AI can replace humans. And why do I say that? I think we've covered enough that the human condition, our psychology, our experiences, our very, very basis of understanding what we find ourselves in environmentally is succinctly different to a machine learning algorithm that does pattern recognition. Our consciousness is important. So, as leaders, if I have to answer that question, I will answer optimistically and say, yes, it will create more jobs because it is my strategic intention to ensure that when we talk about AI, when we're talking about multimodal AI, I expect to see multimodal AI engineers. I expect to see massive influx in LLM engineering. I expect to see quantum computing and AI hybrid engineers. I expect to see educators within AI. I expect to see so much with respect to our human condition that I will ensure, as one of the experts in AI, that it moves to that direction. So, to answer your question in context of will it create more jobs than it takes away, it depends on how we use it as a collective humanity. Currently, there are a lot of leaders which are using the tool in order to create redundancies. But mark my words, those redundancies will be short lived. AI is not at a spot where it can replace humans, and it's going to create more holes and gaps. As to whether the next 10 years will change my statement, only time will tell. But for now, I believe we are protected. Next point. Nirkash, thank you for that question. Will AI create more solopreneurs? I love that sentimentality. And let me answer with a single word this time. Yes. Insofar as artificial intelligence leveraging it responsibly, leveraging it on effective coding, effective systems integration, effective process engineering, most certainly, solopreneurs will be created. Now, Nirkash, I will invite you to consider that we have a course called AI Agentic Frameworks and the Conceptualization of AI Agents. That allows a single human, a person, an individual, a natural person, to create a workforce. So, yes, it will be an interesting landscape to consider that solopreneurs will have an opportunity to grow in number and form. But I would like to believe that those of us which are responsible within the environment of AI will leverage it in a way that create opportunity. I wouldn't want to make a workforce redundant, but so too, I would expect that there will be more opportunity for us to create new industries, new opportunities for even solopreneurs. Safura, let's go to the next question. Would you agree that it would be an irresponsible assumption and a risk for business to delegate AI to its IT department instead of a cross-functional delegation? Wow. You guys are on fire today or tonight. Although I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be accusatory in asking, are you guys looking at AI to generate these questions? No, I'm joking. Safura, to answer your question directly, yes. Yes, it will be irresponsible for business just to engage with IT in order to consider AI. AI in the realm of IT has a very specific flavor, and unless the collective consciousness of IT is already informed by other business factors, Unless IT is already orchestrating inclusivity by all factors of business, it will be a problem. So let me put it this way. I've got no problem with IT leading AI implementation within business, but if it is just placed in IT as a delegated exclusive function of implementation without consultation, that is irresponsible. That is a recipe for disaster. And I say disaster because we're talking about a various amount of human condition elements. We're talking about change management. We're talking about reciprocity. We're talking about the ability to understand the tools. For the fact that AI needs to support existing functions as opposed to replace and make redundant existing functions, it's important for us to understand what the function is. So, Safura, great question. My answer is that AI should be a universal application. And it's quite interesting because within Regenesis, and I say this quite clearly, my good people, the School of AI does not sit in isolation. School of AI is one of the unifying forces within business, speaking to all schools. And why do we do that? Because as business leaders, as heads of schools, we understand the unifying power of artificial intelligence. We understand what a dramatic impact AI can have, not only in technology, but in all spectrum of business. And on that note, my dear audience, my ladies and gentlemen, my AI personas, which are in the audience, I want to pronounce my appreciation. Thank you for making your time available tonight. This has been quite an interesting chat, fireside chat and otherwise. Safura, thank you for the acknowledgement and the agreement. I want to also highlight that it's both private and public sector that needs to understand the concept that AI is a universal commodity. So you are 100% right. Coming back to thanking all of you. I hope that you have a wonderful, restful, and a very, very calming but thoughtful night tonight. Take what you have learned here, digest it, explore it. I humbly ask you as well, reach out to me, explore it with me. I am a person who loves collaboration. I'm a person which would most certainly want to see you as future leaders of AI. The fact that you are around the table here tonight gives me inspiration that all of you in your individual capacity have and intend on moving towards AI leadership. So I, again, want to say thank you. This will draw us to the close of our session. As it relates to the time, thank you for the time you have spent with me tonight. Again, I want to say that this shouldn't be the end of the articulation, of the interaction. We will be exploring more masterclasses, and I expect and I would humbly love if all of you join us for our other masterclasses. It's going to be an amazing journey. We're going to go through crazy topics together, and it's going to be something for the books. Not just the AI prompts, but the books to write home about. Good people, good night, God bless, and may you walk in the best of prompts in the future. Thank you for your time. Cheers.